Welcome to another episode of the Tobago House of Assembly's Post-Executive Council Media Briefing. This week, the Secretary of Tourism, Culture and Transportation, Nadine Stewart Phillips, addresses the media.
First, I want to start off with transportation, and I'm going to be speaking specifically to cruise. Now, cruise tourism is an important driver in the growth and development that generates multiple implications on any calling destination. Accordingly, the Tobago House of Assembly, through the Division of Tourism, Culture and Transportation, has earmarked cruise tourism as a niche market for development. And considering this, the division has recognized the need to formulate and implement strategies to develop cruise tourism in Tobago. The cruise season is set to kick off in Tobago November 15th. We will be having our first call, and for this season, presently, there is an estimate of 55 calls to the destination, both Port of Scarborough and the port in Charlottesville. However, that is subject to change as the Port Authority continues to process applications from other ships that are interested in coming to the destination. Now, an internal committee was created at the division to ensure that our visitors are treated to an interactive and educational as well as memorable experiences. Now, we know most of these cruise, if not all of these cruise, they have pre-booked tours. However, there are a number of persons that we all know are usually seen around Scarborough who do not go on these tours. And so we at the division, we have devised a strategy to ensure that these persons have something to look forward to. And so one such planned activity is an interactive heritage exhibition at the Fine Arts Center at Fort King George. And the objective of this interactive exhibition is to display a collection of artistic, cultural, historical, and scientific artifacts in such a way that will appeal to a wide cross-section of the general public. And just to mention a few of the highlights of this exhibition, we have a Tobago costume exhibit, and this will provide opportunities for visitors and residents alike to learn Tobago's culture and heritage in a unique and dynamic perspective, different from other normative means. Additionally, we would have the Fort King George Interactive Museum experience. We did launch that as one of our new initiatives, our new product offerings here in Tobago, and we can expect to see that come alive during the cruise ship season as well. However, on October 19th, 2017, the reenactment will be opened to members of the public at a cost of $15 per person or $45 for a group of 4 persons. And so that will take place. There will be 2 reenactments, one at 2 p.m. and one at 4 p.m. And all the other scheduled tours will be advertised, because the intention is to target schools as well as other youth organizations to come and witness this interactive museum. Secondly, there will be an interactive marketplace at the Port of Scarborough, recognizing the emphasis that is being placed on the diversification of the Tobago economy and the potential of the creative sector as a significant growth pole and viable option. This project seeks to provide local artisans with a space to showcase and market their products, thereby generating greater income for artisans and building our local items. So a number of persons as well, we are providing the space and the opportunity on what you would call the greens at the Port of Scarborough to showcase their local offerings. Additionally, the Division of Tourism, Culture and Transportation is partnering with the Tobago Certified Tour Guide Association to ensure that we have tour guides on feet in and around Scarborough to lead these persons to, let's say, Scarborough tours. So there will also be a Scarborough tour as well, but the intention is to drive the traffic to 4th King George. So on completion of the Scarborough tour, these persons will be taken to the 4th King George, where, as I mentioned, we have the Interactive Heritage Museum and the 4th King George reenactment. And so therefore I'm encouraging everyone in Tobago. This is not about the Division of Tourism, Culture and Transportation. This is about all of us, that we show our visitors a good time, that we welcome them, that when we meet them on the streets of Scarborough, that we tell them something about Tobago, because we all have a role to play. Ladies and gentlemen, I move to international airlift, and I know much has not been said as it relates to international airlift. However, I must assure you that remains a high priority item on the agenda of the division. And I wish to announce that we have a resumption of a winter-only flight from Manchester with Thomas Cook, and this flight commences on the 11th of November 2017, and this flight will continue up to once a week, up to April 2018. Last winter, the Thomas Cook would have made its first call to Tobago, and it ran until April 2017, and now the flight will be reintroduced. And also, just for the benefit of all our travelers, just to remind you of our existing flights, which we will be maintaining. We have a direct flight to JFK on a Sunday with Caribbean Airlines. Out of the United Kingdom as well, we have year-round flights with British Airways, Virgin Atlantic, as well as Condor out of Germany. I move to just to mention a few initiatives coming out of the Department of Culture, continued programs. We have the Arts for the Aging, built on the understanding of the vital relationship between creative expression and healthy aging, and that of course targets persons 50 years and older. We have the Phenomenal Woman in Arts program, and it brings to the fore again all mature women performing companies which encompass dance, music, drama. We also have the Venezuelan Cultural Exchange classes and graduation, and this is a collaboration with the Venezuelan Embassy. So, and the second level, level 2, and also level 1 classes are scheduled to commence in November. So that is just for information as it relates to programs that are ongoing in the Department of Culture. Again, ladies and gentlemen, on Friday, 4th of November, I would be leading a delegation, a Tobago delegation, to attend World Travel Market in the United Kingdom. We are going under One Trinidad and Tobago banner, partnering with the Ministry of Tourism in Trinidad, and our theme would be Live the Culture. And we are inviting the world to live Tobago's culture, specifically in this case, through Tobago style, through our many unique offerings. I would like to indicate that the Caribbean as a whole, all destinations, we are blessed with beautiful beaches, sunshine, sun, eco attractions. However, in going forward, Tobago intends to differentiate itself from our competitors by positioning the destination as a land of rich and truly unique culture. World Travel Market remains one of the largest trade shows in the industry, and it serves as a forum for the world to meet, to network, and make plans for the upcoming year. With that being said, if you are a destination very serious about tourism, World Travel Market you cannot miss. This year, as we have in the past, the division will hold a number of strategic meetings with tour operators, existing as well as potential airlines. And some of the new airlines that we intend to hold these strategic meetings with includes Air Transat out of Canada as well as Scandinavia. The division, as I mentioned, partnered with the Ministry of Tourism in Trinidad to ensure that appropriate space was provided. A number of stakeholders from Tobago as well are also a part of the Trinidad and Tobago delegation. In Tobago, we would have paid for individual properties their registration, and further to that, we would have given additional support to 4 stakeholder organizations, namely the Tobago Hotel and Tourism Association, the Bed and Breakfast Association, the Tour Guide Association, and the Incoming Tour Operators Association. And so we are giving these properties the opportunity to market themselves, to meet persons and let persons know about their properties. We also have 4 entertainers as well accompanying the delegation, and these persons will be showcasing our rich culture and heritage at World Travel Market. I move, ladies and gentlemen, to Caribbean Tourism Month. Today actually kickstarts Caribbean Tourism Month, celebrated under the Caribbean Tourism Organization, and this year's theme is One Sea, One Voice, One Caribbean. The Division of Tourism, Culture and Transportation, we would place specific focus on 1 week during this month in celebrations, and we have a number of activities. We have a primary school awareness quiz competition, and that will be held during the period 15 to 21st November 2017. We have a total of 13 primary schools that will be participating. Additionally, we have a Tobago Great Tourism Adventure, and this will be held on the 19th of November. And we invite any team that is interested in participating. Each team comprises 5 persons, and registration is $100 per person. Now, the objectives of this Tobago Great Tourism Adventures is to stimulate interest and awareness of the island's tourism offerings, encourage and start conversations about unique features of the product, encourage online content curation for social media, Facebook, etc. So just to give you just a short synopsis of what the Great Tourism Adventures entail, and you would engage in a trek across the island, guided by a variety of riddles, clues, quizzes to solve. Persons will solve as they embark on this journey. Directly participate in some of the island's most notable cultural heritage expressions, like the Tobago Old Time Wedding and Dancing of the Cocoa in Charlottesville. And so this is a very exciting initiative, and we are inviting persons to register. Additionally, the division intends to host a tourism youth symposium, and this symposium targets secondary school students, 4th to 6th form in Tobago, and this is scheduled to be held on Monday, 20th November at the Shore Park Cultural Complex. And the broad objective is to expose students to the socio-economic benefits of the tourism industry, provide an avenue whereby students can actively get involved in the island's tourism efforts, provide students with a platform to utilize their leisure time effectively, and partner with other students and open avenues for them to realize their potential in tourism. Moving to community-based tourism, the division is collaborating with the Division of Community Development, Enterprise Development and Labor on an initiative that will allow the residents of Charlottesville to establish a Charlottesville Museum experience as an attraction for visitors to the community. And if you would remember, Charlottesville has an outstanding product that they would usually showcase during the Heritage Festival. And so we want to move it away from, or encourage the residents to move that away from being a once a year activity and have it as an ongoing activity. Of course, one of the aims is to encourage entrepreneurship as well, and that is why, as a division, we want the community to take control of this initiative and not necessarily the Tobago House of Assembly. Of course, some form of support will be given to the Charlottesville community, probably in the form of a grant, so that this project can be developed. Additionally, I want to touch briefly on the Bell Garden Great House. The intention is to rejuvenate that Great House. It's one of our historical sites as well, and conversation is ongoing with the residents of Bell Garden, the village councils, etc. And it is with the same intention to ensure that persons in the community take these products, develop them, and make them their own. We are willing and able to facilitate the conversation, facilitate the process, but we would allow the persons in the community to own it. Ladies and gentlemen, last but not least on my agenda, I move to the Tobago Tourism Agency, and progress continues to be made as it relates to the operations of this agency. As you may recall, or just to recap, the agency would be the implementation arm for tourism policies and would have sole responsibility for marketing, product development, international airlift cruise, investments, etc. And today I'm just going to touch briefly on the agency. The board of directors, they would have been given a mandate from me as secretary back in July to recruit a chief executive officer, and I am happy to announce today that Mr. Louie has been appointed as the Chief Executive Officer of the Tobago Tourism Agency Limited. Mr. Lewis, in my own view, and I am sure you would agree with me after he gets his chance to speak, he possesses the expertise to drive Tobago's tourism forward. And I will now hand over to Dr. Schuman Rabat. She's the chairman of the agency, so that she can take us through this process. Thank you.
Thank you, Secretary. Good afternoon to the members of the media. We're very pleased to be here. I'm pleased to be here in my capacity as the chair for the Tobago Tourism Agency. Since our appointment as a board of directors, we have been busy at work trying to lay the foundations so that when we create this entity called the Tobago Tourism Agency, that it is on a strong foundation. And part and parcel of that has been to really look at our organization and ask ourselves, what type of organization do we want in terms of structure and in terms of personnel? So one of our key tasks was really to define the organization that we want. So we have a CEO who would be undertaking or taking over the day-to-day operations of the agency, and we would have directors in various capacities, directors of marketing, product development and destination management, investment, cruise, and so on. So that was our first task. And then, of course, we had the business of finance. How do we finance the entity so that it remains viable and sustainable over the long term? We heard that the government of Trinidad and Tobago has mandated that they want to diversify the economy, and I think that for Tobago, certainly we see ourselves playing a part there in the diversification effort. So what kind of budget are we operating? So we have had subcommittees of the board really working assiduously with the Division of Finance to come up with a budget that is reflective of the economic realities of Trinidad and Tobago. So to put it in context for you, the budget is very reflective of where we are now, and what our mandate is to make the best of that in terms of marketing, in terms of airlift, in terms of product development. How do we maximize or get the best bang for our buck? Then we also spoke to our stakeholders. We have had conversations with our stakeholders, maybe not face-to-face at the moment, but we certainly wanted to find out from them what their priorities were in terms of tourism development in Tobago. And to that end, we reached out to them as a board of directors to garner from them some of their views on the challenges, and we've also asked them for recommendations around how do we improve Destination Tobago. And I have to commend the stakeholders who have actually submitted information, because what they have done is to really give us a panoramic view of what Tobago needs, and also propose, I would say, very solid and robust recommendations from which we can work. Our fourth priority was really to get a CEO. At least it was our major priority, but in terms of building blocks. And that is, I would say, one of our big wins. We went about the business of recruiting someone with the relevant experience, qualifications, background, understanding of the public sector, understanding of the private sector, understanding of the economic reality and budgets, finances, and who has a vision for Destination Tobago. We utilized an executive recruitment agency. The adverts were put online, LinkedIn, Caribbean Jobs, Trinidad Express. So there was a wide reach in terms of where this ad went out. And we had I would say, quite a response. We got 51 applicants, and that is phenomenal within the Caribbean region. Over 80% of our applicants came from Trinidad and Tobago, and the recruitment agency was tasked with selecting the top 5 applicants. Included in that would be nationals of Trinidad and Tobago, and anyone who really fulfilled the criteria of the person we are looking for. Understanding that we are living in a globalized world, the agency has to hit the ground running. Destination Tobago has a lot of work to do. The board of directors is very eager to see a turnaround in tourism in Tobago, and so our mandate was really to find the best man or woman for the job. And I'm very happy to say today that interviews were held on the 19th of October, and emerging out of that interview, I think I'm confident, and I'm sure the board of directors is also confident, that we have found the best person for the job in the person of Mr. Louie Lewis. He has a background that is enviable. He has a background, I would say, that is reflective of someone who will bring Tobago to a different level in terms of disruptive thinking, in terms of his qualifications. He has a background in economics. He knows how to navigate the public-private sector. He has very strong leadership skills. He understands budget, operation, financing. He has strong people skills so far. And we are very pleased. And I also want to take this opportunity to commend my board of directors who have worked really hard in trying to get a number of initiatives off the ground, in working together, in using their social capital and their relational capital to help us advance the work of the board. So without further ado, I would like to pass you over and introduce you to Tobago, the people of Tobago, and the media to the first CEO of the first ever quasi-government institution called the Tobago Tourism Agency, Mr. Louie Lewis.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair and Secretary of Tourism. members of the media. I'm very honored to be appointed as the first CEO of the Tobago Tourism Agency. It's a very rare opportunity you get to start with a destination that is desirous of going forward in leaps and bounds, and I think it's quite opportune for us at the agency to take Tobago to that level. My background, as the chair mentioned, is varied. I was formerly the director of tourism for St. Lucia, a position I served for 9 years. Within that time frame, I was able to lead the rebranding of the destination on 2 occasions. And we actually started a rebranding exercise before I demitted office at the beginning of this year. I've also been instrumental in the revamping of the St. Lucia Jazz and Arts Festival, something that defines St. Lucia's image in the traveling public's mind. I was also influential in creating what we term, what can be termed objectively as negotiating the most significant airlift to the destination. And how we measure the effectiveness of such initiatives is by how it translates into economic activities. It's easy to show you the fluffy figures of how the arrivals increased, but at the end of the day, we're into the business of tourism for its economic benefit. And what was most important was to note how the on-island expenditure in the space of about 5 years had gone up by 40%. And that is the objective of being into tourism. The government has announced that tourism is an economic area for strategic development. And I think with my exposure in tourism and my experience there, I can cause that to happen as part of a collective effort. Collective effort meaning from the government side, from the industry side, and from the general public, because it takes all 3 to work together to get the tourism engine, really humming. Part of my background also is that I was the Director of Economic Affairs, chiefly responsible for implementing the government's budget program. So I understand the public sector quite well. I've also worked as an economic statistician, essentially looking at the impacts of tourism on small island destinations. And that I think it's something that is generally misjudged by the significance of its impact. And as we engage later on, we can talk more about the benefits of tourism and how significant it is to small island developing countries. I've also served as the permanent secretary in the Ministry of Commerce, so I clearly understand the business side of it and how it integrates with the whole developmental process. And I've been at the point of the permanent secretary in the Ministry of Tourism and Civil Aviation. I've also spent a little time, well, when I say a little time, my formative years as a bank examiner. So I understand how the books are put together. Fortunately, I've had that colorful career that has culminated in me being here today, to spearhead the initiatives and the implementation for the development of tourism. And I will tell you that in my formative position, I kept a very close eye on Tobago, because it does have the assets that are enviable, a warm and hospitable people, a topography that people really, really would like to enjoy. And those 2 things are the assets. And it's how do we integrate that with the aspirations of the people and get a compelling selling message out to the marketplace. Tobago is really that gem that is a bit of a secret, and we're going to make it public by creating a very compelling marketing plan to get the destination visible. And it's a transformative process, because we're moving from an era where marketing essentially was a one-to-one sort of dialogue. Here is a destination, please visit us. But nowadays it's more interactive. It's getting into social media, using digital technology to reach the visitors. It's fishing where the fish are and getting people to come to this destination. I'm very optimistic that we will get to transform, Tobago to be the enviable island within the places that are known as warm weather destinations. And once we have been able to do that as a collective, I would have been satisfied, and I think the secretary would be satisfied, and I would have earned my keep from the chair.
Thank you for staying with us for the Tobago House of Assembly's Post-Executive Council Media Briefing for the week ending October 4th, 2017.